Everything changes the moment the episode 8 trailer drops, because it quietly confirms something Landman has been building toward all season. The real collapse hasn't even started yet. Episode 7 may have felt slow, even frustrating, but now it's clear it was just the calm before the damage spreads everywhere. The trailer doesn't scream action or chaos. Instead, it whispers consequences. And honestly, that makes it far more unsettling. This is the episode where pressure stops sitting in the background and finally lands on the people who thought they could manage it. Episode 8 opens the door to a version of Landman that feels heavier, darker, and far more dangerous than what we've seen so far. The trailer makes it painfully clear that Tommy is no longer operating from a place of control. Up until now, he's been the guy who smooths things over, absorbs damage, and tells everyone exactly what they need to hear so the company keeps breathing for one more day. But this time, that strategy is collapsing. Nate's warning from the previous episode is no longer theoretical. The consequences are real, immediate, and unavoidable. Every option leads to loss, and what makes it worse is that Tommy knows it. You can see it in the way he hesitates, the way conversations feel unfinished, like he's constantly holding something back. And that silence is about to cost him more than he expects. The trailer strongly suggests that Tommy still won't be honest with Cammy, and that choice alone feels like the central tragedy of the episode. Cammy isn't naive. She believes in the company, believes in the idea that it can still be saved, and more importantly, she believes in Tommy. When she tells him she's counting on him to turn everything around, it doesn't feel motivating. It feels crushing, because we already know he doesn't share her optimism. That gap between what Cammy believes and what Tommy knows is where this episode lives, and it's brutal to watch. At the same time, Rebecca's storyline takes a sharp turn that proves her fear was justified all along. Even though Tommy protected her in episode 7, episode 8 shows that protection has limits. She's no longer just worried about her job. She's worried about becoming collateral damage and a much larger failure. The trailer hints that Rebecca is starting to understand something important. Surviving in this company doesn't mean doing the right thing. It means standing in the right place when everything falls apart. Nate, once again, plays a quiet but powerful role here. He isn't loud, he isn't dramatic, but he sees the board clearly, and he understands that blame always needs a landing spot. And that spot is shifting closer and closer to Tommy. Meanwhile, Galliano's presence hangs over the episode like a final verdict. When Tommy returns to his office, it doesn't feel like he's looking for advice anymore. It feels like he's searching for permission to give up. And Galliano, true to form, offers none. Instead, he delivers the coldest truth possible. The company didn't start dying with bad decisions or failed drilling. It died the moment Cammy's husband did. That line alone reframes everything we've watched so far. Suddenly, all the effort, all the risk, all the sacrifices feel pointless. And that realization hits Tommy hard. Because saving the company was never just about money, it was about proving that the loss didn't end everything. Episode 8 seems ready to strip that belief away completely. There's no big explosion in the trailer, no dramatic reveal, just people slowly realizing they've run out of time. And somehow that makes this episode feel like the most dangerous one yet.
What makes episode 8 especially unsettling is how quiet the danger feels. The trailer doesn't rely on shock value. Instead, it leans into tension built through hesitation, half-truths, and emotional weight. One of the strongest undercurrents in this episode is guilt, and not the loud kind. It's the slow, suffocating guilt that comes from knowing you're letting people believe in something you no longer believe in yourself. Tommy is drowning in that guilt. Every interaction he has feels slightly delayed, like he's already bracing for the moment everything catches up with him. The problem is that when you're the center of an operation like this, your silence doesn't protect anyone. It just pushes the fallout further down the line. Cammy's faith in him is no longer a comfort, it's a liability. The trailer makes it painfully obvious that she sees Tommy as the last line of defense between survival and total collapse. And the tragedy is that Tommy knows he can't be that person anymore. He doesn't have answers, he doesn't have solutions. All he has is time, and even that is running out. This is where episode 8 starts to feel less like a business drama and more like a personal reckoning, because once hope becomes a lie, every choice that follows becomes morally complicated. Rebecca's position grows even more fragile in this episode, and the trailer hints that she's beginning to shift from fear into strategy. She's no longer reacting emotionally, she's observing, watching who speaks, who stays quiet, and who is already preparing an exit. Her earlier humiliation wasn't just a warning, it was a lesson, and now she understands that loyalty doesn't offer protection in this environment, only leverage does. Nate's behavior reinforces that idea perfectly. He's not acting out of anger or jealousy, he's acting out of self-preservation. He knows systems don't fail gracefully, they collapse by assigning responsibility to the most convenient target. And slowly, methodically, he's making sure that target won't be him. What's fascinating is how episode 8 seems to blur the line between right and wrong completely. Every character believes they're making the smartest possible move, yet every move makes the situation worse. Litigation buys time but kills trust. Silence avoids panic but guarantees betrayal. Confidence keeps morale up but delays reality. The trailer captures this perfectly by showing conversations that never quite finish, glances that linger too long, and decisions that are clearly being postponed rather than made. Galliano's role becomes even more disturbing here because he represents the future everyone is trying not to face. He's already accepted the end. There's no emotion left in his assessment, no anger, no sadness, just certainty. And certainty is terrifying when everyone else is still bargaining. His belief that the company died with Cammy's husband isn't just cynical, it's symbolic. It suggests that Landman isn't about saving something broken anymore. It's about understanding why it can't be saved. Episode 8 leans heavily into that idea. The trailer frames the company not as a business on the brink, but as a ghost everyone keeps pretending is still alive. And the longer they do that, the more painful the awakening becomes. Tommy's return to Galliano doesn't feel like a step forward. It feels like an admission of defeat he isn't ready to say out loud. And that internal conflict is what drives the episode's tension. He's caught between responsibility and reality, between loyalty and truth. Episode 8 doesn't promise resolution, it promises exposure. Secrets are starting to show through cracks, intentions are becoming clearer, and the people who thought they were in control are realizing they were only delaying the inevitable. This episode isn't about collapse happening all at once, it's about watching it unfold slowly, knowing exactly where it's heading, and still being unable to stop it. Episode 8 also shifts its focus toward the emotional cost of all this pressure, and that might be the most uncomfortable part of the trailer. Up until now, Landman has balanced its stakes between business decisions and personal relationships, but this episode seems ready to show how inseparable those two things really are. The stress is no longer contained within boardrooms or offices. It's bleeding into every interaction. You can feel it in the way characters speak more carefully, choosing words that won't expose what they're truly thinking. Tommy, especially, appears exhausted in a way that goes beyond work. This isn't burnout from long hours or difficult calls. This is the kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying a truth you know will hurt everyone once it's spoken. The trailer strongly implies that Tommy is reaching a breaking point, not because the company is failing, but because he's being forced to decide who deserves honesty and who can be sacrificed for stability. That's not a decision he's built for, and it shows. Meanwhile, Cammy's role in episode 8 becomes even more heartbreaking. Her confidence hasn't disappeared. If anything, it's stronger. She speaks like someone who believes effort will always be rewarded, and that belief is what makes her so vulnerable. The trailer frames her optimism as something almost fragile, like it could shatter at any moment. She doesn't see herself as clinging to false hope. She sees herself as fighting. And from her perspective, that makes sense. She's invested emotionally, financially, and personally in this company. Letting it die would mean admitting that everything tied to it, including her husband's legacy, is truly gone. Episode 8 seems determined to explore that grief without naming it directly. It lingers beneath every conversation she has with Tommy. He hears her faith as pressure, she hears his hesitation as doubt, and that disconnect widens with every scene. Rebecca, on the other hand, begins to look less like a victim and more like someone adapting to a hostile environment. The trailer suggests she's starting to understand that survival may require decisions she once would have avoided. There's a noticeable shift in her demeanor. She's more composed, more guarded, and less willing to trust reassurance at face value. Tommy's promise that she isn't on the chopping block no longer feels comforting, it feels temporary. And Rebecca knows temporary safety is often the most dangerous illusion of all. Nate continues to operate quietly in the background, but his influence feels stronger than ever. He's not positioning himself as a villain, he's positioning himself as someone who will still be standing when this is over. And in a situation like this, that alone makes him dangerous. The trailer hints that he understands how narratives are formed once things fall apart, who spoke up, who stayed silent, who knew and said nothing. Episode 8 appears ready to examine how easily blame can be reshaped after the fact. Galliano's presence ties all of this together in an almost philosophical way. He's not concerned with feelings, loyalty, or fairness. He's concerned with outcomes. His belief that the company is already dead strips meaning from the panic everyone else is experiencing. And that's what rattles Tommy the most. Because if Galliano is right, then every sacrifice being made right now is pointless. Every strained relationship, every ethical compromise, every sleepless night is for something that no longer exists. Episode 8 seems to force that realization closer to the surface. This isn't an episode about hope fighting back. It's about the slow acceptance that sometimes effort doesn't